Welcome, everyone, for the May episode of Eye on Privacy. My name is Jared Coseglia. I'm the founder and CEO of TRU Staffing Partners, and we are so excited to have all of you joining us here today. This webinar series is aimed to giving privacy professionals of all skills and experiences, whether you're chief privacy officer, C-suite executive, all the way to entry-level attorney or engineer trying to break into the business. We're going to cover a range of topics and issues related to the job market trends that will impact your search, as well as, if you're a hiring manager, impact your ability to attract and retain talent. Every month, I have the great honor and pleasure of being joined by a guest host. And this month's host is someone who, in many ways, is a celebrity in the industry, a luminary, someone who is both incredibly well respected, but also one of the foremost thought leaders in the industry, having seen and experienced so much. And we're here to celebrate with Ron this massive investment in his company, Transcend. So Ron DeJesus, Field CPO for Transcend, our guest host. Thank you for joining us today, Ron. I'm so excited to unpack all sorts of trends with you this month.
Me too, Jared. Thank you so much for having me. This is actually a really cool belated birthday treat. My birthday was 2 weeks ago, so really excited. Thank you so much. But yeah, as field CPO at Transcend, my MO is to engage with the privacy community. So I've had a lot of incredible discussions with my peers over the past couple of weeks, and I'm excited to unpack some insights that I've learned kind of one-on-one from these discussions. And thank you so much on the R Series B announcement. It was an exciting day yesterday, and I'm incredibly excited for this time in privacy tech. It's definitely a watershed moment.
Ron, many of us who've known you for many years maybe know you from being the CPO of Grindr. But tell us a little bit about Transcend and what Transcend is so that everyone in our audience knows a little bit about the organization and the technology.
Yeah, so Transcend is a data governance platform. We help companies to better comply with emerging and existing privacy laws and regulations. The AI Act is obviously top of mind for us and for our customers. So we are an all-in-one, end-to-end privacy compliance solution. And we're just incredibly excited, again, with the announcement of the Series B to really be that better platform for folks in the industry. So yeah, if anyone is on the call and is looking for a solution set that's built with privacy within the code base, feel free to reach out after. But yeah, Transcend is just, I've been there now for 5 weeks. It feels much longer than that, but that's actually a good thing because I've been having just multiple discussions with the community. And it's loud and clear from them that they want a tool that is better suited for the evolving needs of privacy and AI specifically. So yeah, that's what Transcend does.
Well, nobody understands the evolving needs of the privacy community better than you, Ron. So it's great to see you moving from in-house to the software provider side to provide that kind of leadership in that segment. And we're so happy to have you here today. So with no further ado, let's get into the numbers, right?
Yeah.
What is happening right now in May in privacy? So each month we try to update everybody on here are the big trends that we're seeing. And here's the really stark reality of things. In 2022, we saw 44,000 jobs posted for privacy professionals. And in 2023, that dropped to 19,000. That's about a 56% drop. Now, look, part of that is definitely because in 2022, we were at the peak of what we call the Great Resignation. And there was lots of movement, lots of people changing jobs, and an absolute need to backfill departures when people were losing a third to two-thirds of their staff. Things settled down in 2023. That's part of the decline, but also we all thought we were going into a recession. Well, we're still on pace, more or less, for that trend. But we are starting to see things uptick in privacy in terms of the volumes of jobs and also what people are willing to pay for jobs, which we'll get into in more detail today.
That 2024 figure, Jared, does make a lot of sense to me simply because I'm actually starting to see a huge uptick in AI governance roles. So that could be also a factor when it comes to that kind of mirroring the 2023 numbers. That not that we're getting, not that there's less of a need for privacy pros, but I think a lot of the roles are starting to evolve now into AI governance in general. So
I think we're, like you said, starting. And what I'm curious to unpack, and I wonder if you have any observations on this, Ron, are those roles being filled by organizations going to the outside and recruiting new people in, or are those jobs really being roles that are being created for people to be promoted into or moved into from within organizations? Do you have any perspective on that?
yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think honestly, it depends on the maturity of the executive teams in terms of their understanding of what we do as privacy compliance professionals. If they are attuned to what we do on a day-to-day basis, they might be looking internally to say, hey, Ron or CPO, over there, you're well suited to fit the needs of this broader compliance requirement. So again, I think it's based on the maturity level of the folks that are at the C level, at the executive level. But if they're not, if they're just seeing that buzzword of AI and we need this now, they might be looking externally first without really engaging internal folks, which I think is a missed opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I would say our perspective is there's more promoting from within happening right now, but this
Mm,
is in some ways very good for privacy pros because as one seat gets vacated and elevated within an organization, it creates an opportunity for somebody else to move into that role, either from within or from outside. And we are starting to see that what I call trickle down effect, which links us to our second observation that we'll unpack here, which is that CPOs are only spending 50 to 75% of their time being CPOs. What we found is they're spending either, I think it's 10 to 20% doing their own recruiting, right? And
yeah.
another 15 to 25% dealing with AI that may or may not have anything to do with privacy or PET or anything related to the program and is actually just AI for the business in different ways, sometimes compliant, sometimes not. Are you seeing this too, that CPOs are now being pulled in different directions that no longer fit the job descriptions from 2020, 2021, and 2022?
Yeah, and I'll firstly say, Jared, on the point around recruitment, that definitely resonates with the discussions or the folks that I've been having discussions around. It's privacy is such a niche role, and so it's hard to relay that to the recruitment function. So I think a lot of my peers have taken that upon themselves to be that kind of that single point of contact to accept resumes, especially for our special set of roles, unique set of roles. So that's kind of the first point. And then us broadening our scope, I definitely, see that happening, especially with not even just with AI, but other compliance areas that are emerging. There's definitely intersections with us and security, for example. I've seen a lot of folks take on, again, depending on the maturity level of the org and the size of the org, other compliance areas, particularly security. So yes, we are pulled in various directions, but I think again, generally we're well suited to address the various needs of the compliance function overall. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
Year to date, 2024 in privacy based on offers, we're seeing a crazy split here where almost less than 40% are full-time direct hire positions and north of 60% are contract opportunities. And we'll get into some of the specifics of that data. But I think this is more indicative of people not being able to get the budget and headcount approval for an FTE. If you're a publicly traded company, it affects your stock prices differently based on full-time hiring acquisition. And a lot of people are replacing talent with contractors that they either lost or need in order to move the program forward. And this is tied to this next point, Ron, which is the most staggering statistic we've ever seen as it relates to the conversion of contractors. 42% of our contractors since January of 2023 have been offered conversions, and 95% of them accepted it. I mean, that's astronomical. People are definitely using contract to hire as a way to get the buy-in to bring people on in a full-time capacity in data privacy.
It's astronomical, but to me, not surprising because when you find good privacy talent, you do not want to let that go. Again, the pool of candidates in our privacy community, I would say, is smaller compared to other compliance areas. So when you find a contractor that, again, demonstrates their robust knowledge in emerging laws and regulations and things of that nature, I think it makes sense that folks are holding on to those individuals.
This is the number of days for the last 12 months that we found, or I'm sorry, in 2023, but it's stayed about the same so far this year, that it takes before a contractor is offered a conversion. Now, what's interesting is that number was closer to like 150 days in 2022. So it's extended quite a bit. It means that the employers are now having both the time to take more time and evaluate someone's fit, but it also helps signal to hiring managers that this is about how long you have until that contractor might start looking for other work. What we've also found is, in our business, about 92% of our contractors are either on assignment, get converted, or complete their assignment successfully. That other 8%, 2% just don't work out, usually in the first 2 weeks. The other 6%, what usually happens is they wind up getting another full-time job somewhere else, and they leave that contract. That happens. So right now, the last 12 months, at around 260 days. So it is a little bit longer than this number, which is the average time until someone's offered a conversion. And that should give hiring managers a good litmus of, okay, if I wait more than about 250, 260 days, I might lose this contractor if they're really good. And around 220 days gives me a safe range to really explore their candidacy, feel good about the conversion, and time it accordingly. And we'll keep reporting on these numbers and how they might change so that people can
Wow.
recalibrate.
Those are helpful milestones to definitely keep in mind for sure. Yeah.
Burnout is now the number one motivator for job seekers in privacy that we talked, and we talked to hundreds and hundreds of privacy seekers a month. And right now they are burnt out, and it's largely because they're understaffed. And I think all of these metrics sort of point to that outcome.
Yeah, the concept of a one person privacy show is slowly, actually maybe not slowly, but definitely not something that's acceptable to us anymore. So I definitely see burnout as the number one kind of reason folks might be seeing what's in the market for sure.
Let's unpack all this in greater detail. We've got a number of specific data points, MT, that we can turn to here. Let's talk about CPOs for a second. So when we look at those 19,000 jobs, Ron, we found less than 5% of the advertised jobs in 2023 were for CPOs. This is a big decline from 2022. So there's a lot less opportunity out there. And I think you might be right. Some of it might be that the opportunities are changing in terms of titling or skill set and experience. But this is a significant impact to what do CPOs do next, potentially. Additionally, we talked about this 10 to 20% personally recruiting, and then finally 15 to 25% focused on AI. What are your thoughts on what's happening to the role of CPO and what's next?
Yeah, I think it's a really great point you made around what's next after you reach that apex of chief privacy officer. I have seen a couple of peers dabble in consulting, for example, maybe going in-house at a big four to kind of test those consulting waters. Again, I'd mentioned, and you had pointed out already, that I think those roles are probably transitioning into broader roles to support, again, compliance with other pillars of compliance. So you might have chief compliance officers that are overtaking or subsuming, if you will, privacy compliance needs. And again, I think we're just going to see an uptick in AI governance roles that might also be folded into, AI and chief privacy officer. I've seen a couple of those as well. So multiple reasons. That is a surprising figure to me, but those are some of the things that I kind of theoreticize in terms of end result. So
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
also, the guidance I've been giving a lot of CPOs is, this next 6 to 12 months is a really important time for you internally. Forget about looking externally for a second, but just internally to meet with your upward stakeholders, have a discussion about redefinition of role responsibilities, have a discussion about recalibration of salary compensation, have a discussion around retitling or potentially altering reporting structures that are now going to suit the business to the best of the capability with which you can make an impact on it. And it may go above and beyond privacy, and that may be the future, right? I saw it happen in e-discovery and cyber, where sometimes the best way to move up is to move to the side. And, there's no way to break through that concrete ceiling. You've got to just move over this way in order to leverage yourself up. To your also point, Ron, I would say I've seen a lot of CPOs starting to move to law firms too, that are lawyers, that are practicing.
Yeah.
Rachel Reed, left Voya. She's now at Evershed is a good example. The
Hmm.
former CPO of Apple is over at Gibson Dunn. So that's a pathway too, particularly if you're a practicing attorney.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was just going to say also, Jared, that 15 to 25% time spent on AI by CPOs, I think spot on. Again, as the AI Act is now kind of in its final state. We had Colorado becoming the first U.S. state to have some sort of AI requirements. It's definitely just going to increase from there. But I think the 15 to 25% is definitely spot on in terms of what we spend our time on.
We've got a question from the audience I want to throw at you, Ron. Can you explain how how AI governance is different from traditional privacy roles? And what departments are doing these hiring in terms of digital teams or legal? The first part of that question, I'm curious to hear your answer.
Yeah, I'm laughing a bit, not laughing, but I'm smiling because AI governance, we've already been doing that as privacy pros since the inception of AI initiatives, AI projects. So what I mean by that is, as privacy compliance professionals, we've already been doing data protection impact assessments. We've already been making sure that transparency exists with respect to, new initiatives and projects that might involve new technology, including AI. So we've already been operationalizing this concept of privacy by design, security by design in our roles. So this kind of change to AI governance, I think, it's more of a, again, my perspective, but it's a bit of a fad because again, we've been doing this in our jobs since the inception of our roles. So you will see a lot of these AI governance roles pop up, but again, we are as privacy professionals 99% suited to address these. And I don't know if Jared, you saw my recent update, but I did get the AI GP, which is the AI
I
governance
did.
professional certification. And so I felt that is an expression of my ability to operationalize privacy with the lens of AI. So again, it's I just wanted to emphasize that we already know and do this as privacy pros. So
I
and then
love that. I agree with you. And to answer the
yeah.
back half of that question, look, most of the jobs I see that are advertised where people are looking from the outside in right now are still very attorney driven, right? They want attorneys who are coming in
Mhm.
with the AI Act knowledge and understand how to work with contracts, particularly third-party vendors, in helping, at least for the business, regulate how AI is being used or not used or managed internally. But I think that will evolve and change. Salaries are all over the boards, guys. I mean, it's just not a codified vertical yet. And so it depends on the organization, right? What a company like Meta might pay for somebody with AI governance expertise will be very different than a company like Transcend, right? It would be wildly different, kind of set of responsibilities and salary.
Yeah. No, I agree, Jared. And I'm seeing a couple of side questions, but I think I think the JD requirement tends to depend on the maturity level and size and of the company. If they're an SME and not as big as an F1000, they might want to have a JD simply to cover their bases, right? So they might want to have this AI governance professional also be able to essentially act as internal counsel for these emerging laws and regulations. So I think you will see a lot of these AI governance roles still require a law degree. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm a huge proponent of companies taking into consideration other specialties that might be able to, operationalize privacy. But I think that's probably some of the reason why you're still seeing the JD requirement in some of these
And
roles.
also because that might be the specialization, right, Ron? It might be a lawyer who
Mhm.
just does that and is really just focused on that and maybe doesn't have a lot of the operational privacy prowess that a lot of non-attorneys do, or even that a lot of attorneys do. I think that this can be a specialization in an ecosystem at a big organization where they've got the room to compartmentalize skill sets. But you're right, for most organizations, this is a hat that is being worn by somebody in a leadership position that is sort
Yeah.
of organically moved into that knowledge expertise. All right, let's keep going because we've got about 10 more minutes. I want to make sure we get to some other trends. This is the contract versus direct hiring staffing trend. And you could see year to date in 2024, we're at almost double the amount of contract roles being filled. And keep in mind, This isn't positions being advertised. These are positions that we're tracking where people actually say yes and start a job. And the reason why I emphasize that is back to Ron's point earlier about so many people spending so much time trying to self-source. The problem with self-sourcing, above all else, and there are lots of problems with what we call DIY staffing, right? Not using an organization like TRU that's specialized in that industry, is, if nothing else, just the time. The time it takes to try to do this on your own, we've measured, is about 3 to 5 times the amount of time. And the problem with that is you're losing candidates, or you're moving on to your second, third, or fourth choice, or you're compromising on compensation in order to compete. There are all these obstacles that come in your way because the speed is so slow. Now, what we're seeing here is, yeah, there might be a lot of full-time jobs being advertised, but they're not being filled very quickly. And as a result, what is being filled are those contract jobs. Those contract jobs get filled really fast. People make quick decisions. They know that they can phase people out if they need to. They're trying and then exploring conversion. And that's part of why you're seeing this number so high. Thoughts on any of these dynamics, Ron?
I will say, just a plug for you, Jared. I mean, TRU Staffing definitely has that expertise when it comes to those requisitions that are out there, right? Those, again, as I mentioned earlier, our roles are incredibly special and specialized. So, working with a company like TRU Staffing is definitely going to be beneficial. If you don't have the expertise on the recruitment side, that can really be your first line of defense when it comes to looking at resumes and other candidates. So, quick plug for you. So,
Appreciate that. I appreciate
yeah,
that, my friend. I appreciate that. All
yeah.
right. 42% of our contractors we talked about got converted. I think we talked about this too. 95% accepted that conversion, which is also astronomical. I mean, usually it's, 8 to 12 convert, and I'd probably say about 20, 25 get offered conversions, about 25%. I mean, these numbers are crazy. And again, 228 days is the average before a contractor were offered conversions last year. Let's keep moving. We have a few more exciting things to show everybody. Here's the length of assignment. We talked about that before, Ron. In 2022, average days 152. 2023, average days 168. 2024, we could see the average days is now 231. But for conversion, it's at 228. So you could see here just how many people are both ending assignments and converting them, because those numbers are almost the same, which, as you can see, is unusual.
Does that mean, Jared, that there's a bit of a lag between the actual hire of that potential individual versus what they've actually been contracted for?
No, it actually means that that 231 is kind of, well, what about the contractors who don't convert? How long do assignments last before they just organically end? Or how long until that contractor takes something else? And we've established 260 is kind of that range of when they take something else. But most assignments are ending for one reason or another at around 231 days. The ones that are ending as a result of a conversion, a few days faster.
Got it. Interesting.
65% of our customers are using both contractors and hiring full-time people from us, which I think is compelling. 92% of our contractors are finishing converting or still on assignment. And the 6% that don't, here's that 260 days, just to give everybody that. We added one more stat here that I thought you would find fascinating, Ron. In big tech, with our customers in big tech, that day is actually 735 days average. So an assignment with big tech tends to last almost 3 times as long.
Well, they have the money.
And not only do they have the money, but they're using contracting as a primary modality with which to augment talent. And if you go and look at people, whether they're full-time or contractors, the length of tenure with most big tech organizations is around 2.5 years, 2.5, 3 years. So whether you're a contractor or a full-time employee, the length of the assignment is sort of the same, we're finding, in big tech, which means there's more staying power in a big tech contract, generally speaking.
Got it.
We mention this because sometimes it is what attracts people to leave full-time jobs and enter into contracts, because they're more or less full-time jobs with just a different benefit ecosystem. And by the way, if you're a true contractor, you get benefits, you get healthcare opportunity, you get a 401k match up to 4% in the first year, fully vested. So we do treat our contractors like full-time professionals. Here are all the reasons why people are using contractors. Anything stand out in this list, Ron, is like, oh man, yeah, this is This is a big factor that I see happening out in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think a couple of them. So no full-time headcount approval, I think is a big one. I think the the thought to leadership of hiring someone as an FTE can be a little scary at times for a role in privacy. So I definitely see that as a blocker at times. And then also there was one here around just in terms of up-leveling existing staff. Again, you might want someone that's specialized in a certain area of compliance for a temporary period or to just, append the existing knowledge set that you have with your existing staff, and then have them, basically train the trainer approach. I've seen. So those two there. There's a couple things I wanted to mention in terms of like implications of using contractors as well, which is essentially, contractors might spend a lot of time building up internal knowledge of systems, et cetera, that tribal knowledge. And I think that goes back to your point around the fact that they are getting actually hired as full-time equivalents. Was it around 47% of the time? So that makes
42 are
42,
offered and 95
42 are
accept.
offered.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think
a lot.
that's a smart move because, you don't want to lose that individual who might be kind of, the only person that knows that system or has been really well trained on a specific procedure. So I definitely see that kind of materializing there. So
We've got 5 minutes, Ron. I want to get into all the salary figures. I believe that's what's next. We've got motivations here. We've been over this a little bit. We can go to the next one, MT. This is what's happening right now in the marketplace, with burnout being the #1 motivator, working more remotely #2, and money in third place still.
yeah, I want to emphasize the working remotely more as something that I hear time and time again. Folks have demonstrated that they are able to work remotely in COVID, so they expect the same level of autonomy, I think.
And that's also why there's less full-time jobs actually getting filled, Ron, because most contract positions will allow for a different set of standards and allow contractors to be fully remote. Whereas when they look to hire full-time jobs, a lot of them have 3+ day in-office requirements, and that will compound the timeline with which it takes to fill those positions even more on top of other requirements like compensation or geography or variables that could extend the timeline based on the availability of candidates in those marketplaces.
Makes total sense.
Here's the benchmarks for money. All of this can be found on TRU's website. If we go one more, this is what I find really interesting. We took the IAPP salary survey from 2022 and their means and analyzed them up against our current 2024 jobs report, which you can also download on our website. And we essentially found that the means based on IAPP salary survey were the bottom of the ranges for what we're saying salaries are. And this makes sense, right? If someone's going to leave a job, they're going to want to make more on whatever job they're going to next. And so for the means to sort of be the bottom of what future state payment compensation payments will be, sort of validates our numbers against IAPPs and vice versa. So this gives you a sense of those ranges based on role. And then the last thing, Ron, that we'll share with everybody, and then I'll give you final thoughts, is we've got inflection points. So you can see in 2023, if you were represented by TRU, 98% of people got increases. That increase was around 23%. In 2023, 99%, with a 35% average increase in base salary. But that has been more difficult in 2023. 2023, it was only 65% of people we placed actually got more money moving jobs. And that increase was at an average of 18%. So the market has definitely gotten more frugal. And on the next slide, you'll see that it's moved to less experienced talent. In 2022, people with 4 to 10+ years of experience was where the demand was in the marketplace, and they were getting between the 20 and 40% increase. If you go to 2023, you'll see that everybody moved downstream and they wanted more people with less experience that cost less. But what that's doing is it's exacerbating salary increases for people with less experience who cost less in compensation, because that pool is in such high demand right now that they're able to command a 25 to 32% increase in their base compensation.
Yeah.
So this is where we are with the money in the industry. It's an interesting place. Ron, final thoughts for our audience on anything we talked about today, or any questions that you have for me or the community tuning in with us today?
No, this is incredibly helpful, Jared. These stats are spot on in terms of what I've been seeing and talking with the community. my final thought is AI governance specifically is such a new area in terms of roles out there. So if I would encourage folks that are in the privacy profession, vouch for yourselves. If you find an AI role that is interesting to you, make sure that you're able to effectively communicate why you're a good fit for that role based on your privacy experience. Again, as I mentioned, we are the original OG compliance folks, so it just makes sense that we are able to easily transition into AI governance roles. So that's my last parting thought for these folks.
I agree with you 100%, Ron. And I would also say that privacy people are some of the few people that touch all parts of the business, right? Not every compliance professional does, but privacy does. And being able to now evangelize those relationships you've built cross-functionally, in addition to your knowledge base, should help you fight for those positions, either internally or externally. We're at the hour, right on the money. Ron DeJesus, you are brilliant. I appreciate you so much joining us for this call. Congrats to you on 5-week anniversary at Transcend. Congrats to Transcend on the Series B investment. And thank you everyone for joining us today. You can find resources here for whatever you might need from TRU. And Ron, what's the best way for people to reach out to either you or people at Transcend if they're curious about the organization?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. So find me, Ron DeJesus. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, transcend.io. And thank you again, Jared. This went by way too fast, actually. I was having such a good time, but I'm sure I'll see you at the next major AIPP conference. So thank you.
Count on it. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great week.
Bye, everyone.